right, hello, good afternoon. So Thomas, since we have a little bit of a local and a global audience, and obviously we're being broadcast on TechCrunch and TechWeb and some other venues, people may not necessarily be so familiar with sort of the social networking site scene here in China. So I'm wondering, for those who are less familiar with it, whether you could sort of start off by giving us a little bit of background information about your company, and then also sort of the competitive landscape, and what's the difference between what's going on here in China and Facebook, which some people are more familiar with.
Sure, I think that's probably two questions there. So I'll break it down. In terms of Kaixin, we started in March of 2008. We were founded by the former acting CTO of Sina and his team. When he was at Sina, he was responsible for the search product as well as for the wireless team as well. And he was with Sina for over 10 years. What he saw was an opportunity in the marketplace to create a platform where users can get a chance to be happy. What he saw was a lot of users, a lot of people, and a lot of people around him were incredibly busy with their work and in their lives, especially with the economy growing the way it has, and people not having time to get together and socialize. So he thought that he could create an environment online where people can do that. So that's how we ended up with the company name being called Kaixin. In Chinese, it means happy network. So, in the China environment, there's probably a number of online companies, whether they were created or they were purchased. In terms of social networking, there's I think QQ is probably the largest company out there in China right now in terms of the internet scene with their instant messenger. I think they have well over 300 million users, registered users. There's also Xiaonej, which was a company that was purchased that was mainly focusing on university students and made to look exactly like Facebook. And then 51.com, which was in many ways, I think, MySpace of China. So very different themes, very different sectors of the market I think people are focusing on. I think for Kaixin, we're focused on the white-collar community, Tier 1, Tier 2 cities. I think the key differentiation amongst the various groups is not only their interests, but also the spending power of each group, and I think it varies quite significantly. The way I look at it is like any media. I think QQ will cover mass media. It's in many ways like I guess in the Western world very similar to People magazine or National Enquirer. I mean, everyone's going to stop and look at those headlines and look at that content. It reaches all demographics. I think for Kaixin users, we're slightly different in the sense that not all of QQ users will necessarily be concerned about the real estate market or the global economy or reading the Wall Street Journal or looking at how the overall stock market's performing. So slightly different user base, slightly different focus. I think the market's certainly big enough for multiple parties. So.
Kaixin sort of became famous for launching, Kaixin001 became famous for launching social games in China on a social networking platform. There were already sort of, I guess, some established players in the market when you all came in, and you saw pretty astronomical growth really quickly. Can you sort of talk a little bit about, how that phenomenon happened, and especially with this sort of white-collar user base, how the social games sort of paired with them and lured these type of users to your website?
I think in terms of social games, I think we were the first to bring it to the market here in China. I think what you saw previously from just the overall internet market in China, you saw a lot of casual game players, and you also saw a lot of MMORG players. And a lot of those games, they're not necessarily social. I think the demographic of our users are probably not the same type of folks who would play MMORPG games. What we saw as an opportunity and why we and how we tackled that market was, in large part through our partner in Sina, having a 10-year relationship with them. The founders, our first test bed of users were Sina folks, and the company, having been around for so long, kind of made for a very perfect test bed. So they helped invite their friends, and when we started, it was by invite only. So obviously he invited his former Sina friends, and then the Sina folks invited their colleagues, and so on and so forth. And the readers of Sina tend to be, the white-collar user base. So.
With the growth that you've had, there have been some reports recently that that's sort of stagnating or plateauing a little bit, and that Kaixin001 isn't necessarily innovating so much in the gaming space anymore. So there's a lot of speculation as to what you're going to do in terms of opening up to third-party platforms, how revenue sharing might work, and what's going to happen basically to sort of keep you in the game with all the other social networks. Can you talk a little bit about that? Sure.
I joined the company about a month and a half ago. I was involved with the company for over a year and a half. I helped them raise their Series B financing. When we did the Series B financing, our user base was about 20 million. This was about a year and a half. And then I think we ended up last year around well over 60, I think close to 70 million. And through Q1 of this year, we're at 80 million registered users. So in terms of our overall user base, that's growing at a very healthy rate, and we're quite happy about that. In terms of, I think, worried or concerns about us plateauing, I think that's more of a concerns with regards to we had one really, really huge hit game last year, our Happy Farm game, and we had at the peak, I think, daily active users of well over 15 million. Right now we're down from that peak, and I think that's very normal. We're about well over 10 million daily active users right now.
So what are you going to do, though, in terms of opening up to third parties?
So we don't want to be known as just a gaming platform. I think there's more to do here. I think given the opportunity in the China market, and I think the China market is still quite early on the internet side. I think there are news reports recently that we opened up and we're working with various travel sites, including the folks at CHINICT, including Kaixin, and we think commerce is going to be a very big part of that as well.
So there's sort of no immediate plans to open up to third-party gaming?
Oh no, absolutely no. Okay. We're open to games, and we're currently beta testing I think 5 to 6 third-party games right now, and we're very happy with the results. So
I see. And then also sort of along these lines of staying, I guess, competitive in this market, you were saying that you have a white-collar user base, and below that is Rinrin, which has a huge social networking site that has a lot of users who are college students. How do you plan on sort of, migrating new users to Kaixin001 to sort of keep that flow going of users from one social networking site to another? Is that possible to kind of do that?
I think for us, we focus on our own product. We try to build things that our users would welcome, that our users would enjoy, our users would be happy using. Whether it's games, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is other tools and applications that are very friendly for the users. I think we're trying to be a part of their daily lives, so that they can come to us and have some sense of happiness while for the few minutes that they're on our site. So and so far in terms of the time spent on our site, I think it's one of the highest within the China internet, various websites. Yeah, I think we're close to about half an hour or more per visit per user. So.
But do you think, though, that in terms of the social networking sites in China, that it's kind of harder to make them sticky, for lack of a better word, to kind of keep users there and to sort of have them migrating to your platform? You have to have something like social games or whatnot to build that user base versus Facebook, where it's just sort of naturally forming communities. Is there a difference there at all?
Well, I think the key thing and the core of any social networking site is the social relationships on the site. So if your friends are on this site, your family members are on this site, you want to share photos, you want to share stories, you want to share headlines, you want to share opinions. I think that's what keeps them there, and I think that's universal, whether it's on Kaixin or on Facebook. That is the key thing, that type of interaction, and I think that's very different than what a lot of companies were previously doing globally, including QQ.
So 5 years down the line, how do you see social networking sites in China? Are there going to be any sort of major changes or innovations? How does the proliferation of smartphones and sort of the mobile web factor into this? How do you expect the landscape to change, if at all?
Yeah, I think one thing where China has the market is so large, and we benefit a lot from seeing how Japan's developing. I think they're very advanced on the 3 and 4G networks. There's a lot of lessons there. I think what is going to be most convenient for users, if they're really busy and they're not always in front of their PCs, people can communicate with their friends like they do on their phones. So I think mobile and smartphones will play a significant part, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for 3G adoption, as well as smartphone adoption. But we see with the iPad, I think there's going to be a lot of those in the market, whether it is probably not the Apple OS, but most likely Android or some other OS. I think that's going to be make a big impact in the market as well.
So sort of wrapping up here, just to really sort of have more of a concrete idea and solidify how you all plan to further innovate over the next couple of years. You said you're expanding into e-commerce. You're going to open up to third-party game developers. Anything else? I mean, what is sort of your plan moving forward in this market right now?
Well, I think for the short term, those two things that you just mentioned are probably the key focus area right now. I think there's a lot to do on that space. I think there are folks talking about various commerce plays like what Guild Group is doing or what Groupon is doing. I probably have heard about well over 10 to 20 similar companies, met with a handful of them. There's a lot to do on that space, and I think we're going to stay pretty busy on that front. So I'm not sure there's going to be anything that will differ from that in the near term.
Finally, do you guys have any plans to IPO or anything in the future?
I prefer that the management team doesn't think about those things. I think if we build the product and build it well, serve our user base well, that will take care of itself. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Great to talk to you.